Thanks for joining us. We are people of Parler, and our mission is to combat the spread of hate, misinformation, and fascism on the social app Parler.
Parler has gained media attention over the past few weeks as a result of Twexit, a hashtag and movement spurred on by people, mainly conservatives, publicly denouncing Twitter and switching to the censorship-free free speech app.
Parler launched in August of 2018, but didn't really gain mainstream traction until July of this year, when Senator Ted Cruz announced his intention to relocate to the app after 5 of Trump's tweets were given warning labels.
Since then, conservatives have been migrating to Parler in droves. But why did Facebook and Twitter censor posts from these people to begin with?
After the 2016 presidential election, social media, and Facebook in particular, drew tons of scrutiny with relation to what, if anything, they were doing to combat the spread of false information. Mark Zuckerberg has testified before Congress on multiple occasions to explain what he and his company are doing to filter misinformation. New restrictions and guidelines were put in place regarding political content shared on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This includes a report function by which users could flag false or misleading articles, images, and memes.
Posts mentioning COVID-19 are automatically linked to verified information regarding the pandemic. Closer to the 2020 election, Instagram shut down recent posts from hashtags in order to curb the spread of fake news or alternative facts.
Just so happens that more often than not, the posts slapped with warning labels or removed entirely were from conservatives and Trump supporters.
From this, a narrative was constructed which painted Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as anti-Trump, targeting him and his supporters directly in order to skew the spread of information in favor of the left, or, in the case of this election, the Biden campaign.
Fed up with what they interpreted to be an attack on their free speech, these folks decided to take their ball and go home, to Parler, where you can say almost anything you want.
Anything. Like the N-word with a hard R, or COVID-19 is fake and a plot by Bill and Melinda Gates to inject you with a microchip that controls your mind with the help of 5G signals, or, hey, Hitler definitely had some good points. Stuff like that.
Now, at first blush, it seems like any rational person would acknowledge this kind of thing is wrong, hateful, harmful. And maybe there's a good reason for monitoring social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to prevent the spread of such rhetoric.
But speak to a lot of Parler's new users and they're mostly dismissive or unconcerned. Many of them probably don't even agree with these ideas, but they do feel the right of people to say those things is a greater concern than the duty of social media to deny them a platform.
Now, this brings us to the main subject of this video, the hate speech we don't always recognize, how it desensitizes us to greater displays of hatred, and how social media is often used by extremists to, with the help of this language, radicalize.
Some folks refer to this coded speech as dog whistles. For this video, we'll use Doublespeak. It paints a vivid picture of exactly what this is. Words and phrases that don't seem to convey anything beyond their literal meaning, but which to intended audiences communicate otherwise controversial messages. A few examples. Family values. To some, that might mean valuing the institution of family. Vague, but nice sounding. To evangelicals, family values means Christian beliefs, and someone like George W. Bush mentioning the importance of protecting those values tells evangelicals that he is on their side and will push policies that support their beliefs over the beliefs of others. Bad hombres, more recently, law and order, and forced busing, which were first used most recognizably by George Wallace in response to efforts to integrate neighborhoods and schools. These terms shift the focus from race, which racists immediately recognize, to safety and higher taxes, which are big concerns for others and much more palatable for most. Globalism/international banks/the global special interests, which to the untrained ear might just sound like more America First stuff, but actually is an anti-Semitic dog whistle, which resonates with those who believe Jewish people are in control of banks. Think QAnon. Political correctness is a huge one. On the face of it, it's synonymous with hurt feelings, people being too sensitive. To white nationalists, political correctness has long been decried as a direct attack on the white race, which forces them to tone down their language and enable the impending white genocide.
When politicians use these terms, they let the growing fringe groups of extremists know that their fears are shared and that they are on their side. And they know exactly what they're doing. The problem with doublespeak is that it's often impossible to prove. Its diabolical genius lies in its deniability. So imagine for a moment that you are conservative in the fiscal sense, and you genuinely want your family and neighborhood to be safe. And you believe that the concerns facing the US on the domestic level are more important and should take priority over those on the international level. You hear America First and Law and Order, and you agree. And then somebody you don't really relate to on the other side of the aisle says the person saying those things is actually being racist. And you're like, well, there it is, political correctness run amok. So this leads to confirmation bias. Essentially, confirmation bias is the tendency to seek out and accept information that is in line with what you already believe. This entrenches our views and closes our minds to evidence that may challenge or even disprove our long-held beliefs. The internet is absolutely rife with opportunities for this kind of thing to take root and spread. The term echo chamber springs to mind.
As it relates to Parler and the mass migration away from mainstream social media, people want to feel that they are right. We want to be agreed with. Rarely, if ever, does somebody really mean it when they say, "change my mind." So when facts are up for debate because they directly contradict what you want to be true, the truly entrenched go somewhere else with facts they like.
The other thing with confirmation bias is that it often leads people to accept things they would normally question just because they've already decided they like the source. For example, a conservative in 2014 would maybe have some qualms about the 1776 Commission, which pushes the teaching of American exceptionalism and effectively glosses over the very real issues of racism and prejudice that had a hand in building the foundation of this country. They would probably be taken aback by the same administration imposing the will of the federal government on states like California by threatening to withhold funding for schools which teach the 1619 Project, which tells the story of the U.S. through the lens of slavery and racial injustice. They would maybe raise an eyebrow at the president's instructions to government offices that they halt all racial sensitivity training. But now, given their unwavering support for this administration because of its defense of family values and lower taxes and law and order, they're pretty sure Trump has his reasons.
Within echo chambers, with no real restrictions or opposing viewpoints, extremism breeds. I mean, your uncle or sister-in-law who went to Parler because they truly, really just think free speech is the most important thing ever will not necessarily emerge in 3 months as a member of the Proud Boys or wearing a pointy white hood. However, they will slowly be desensitized to their rhetoric and language. They won't tell them they are wrong or report their seemingly empty threats. They'll scroll on, probably, because that's why they're on Parler. Those people, they reason, have every right to be racist, but as a result of this exposure, they may actually become more prejudiced. Meanwhile, there are others, the disenfranchised and vulnerable, ripe for radicalization.
A few things factor in here. Parler's popularity among white supremacists, Boogaloo Boys, Proud Boys, and other fringe groups, and the older average age of the Parler user, combined with a general lack of digital literacy. During the 2016 presidential race, a study found people 65 and older shared 7 times as many articles from fake news websites as people aged 29 and younger. To quote the New York Times article directly, they found that Republicans, and those who identified as very conservative, tended to share the most news from questionable sources. But that tendency may have less to do with ideology and more to do with what those articles said. Users tend to share stories they agree with, and the fake news sites were disproportionately pro-Trump.
People who are in the know are aware of some of the alt-right terms and symbols displayed here. To others, they don't really mean anything, but they let racists and white supremacists know they are in good company and they are welcome. In a study by Rand, 15 terrorists and their previous internet activity were examined. Their findings confirmed, among other things, that the internet as a medium allows those that would otherwise be scared of being seen with the wrong people to be engaged, and one which makes the whole process more invisible to the authorities. In many cases, access to the internet echo chamber created more opportunities for them to be radicalized.
In 2016, Twitter came under the microscope after apparent Islamic State members allegedly used the platform to spread propaganda and recruit members. 4chan, 8chan, even Reddit, and others have come under fire after members of extremist groups on those forums use these sites to recruit and organize. A quick search of many of these platforms will return the terms displayed earlier. Now, they're being used on the same platform your mildly racist aunt is posting pictures of her cat and demanding a recount. Spend just moments on Parler, and more obvious alt-right calling cards appear. References to the day that wrote QAnon conspiracies, anti-vax propaganda, transphobic memes, anti-LGBTQ rhetoric.
A few minutes and you are down the rabbit hole. Joining you there, Sean Hannity, Ted Cruz, Richard Spencer, the Proud Boys, the list goes on. From the seemingly mainstream to the alt-right extreme, garden variety bigotry to unhinged conspiracy theories.
So what can be done?
To start with, emphasizing digital literacy and fact-checking must start at the school level. It's 2020. Kids are on the internet in some form from the time they can hold a tablet, and barring some world-ending devastation of World War III proportions, a good chunk of their lives will be spent on social media. It is imperative that everyone has a basic understanding of how to identify a false news story.
Next, and perhaps even more importantly, we need to raise awareness of coded speech, hidden bigotry, and engage in counter-messaging. Call out racists and bigots. Report threats of violence. Identify and provide support for those most susceptible to radicalization. Have difficult conversations with your loved ones. And yes, if you can do so safely without revealing too much personal information, join Parler and join the conversation. Derail the hate train, blow the doors off the echo chamber. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe using the button below and see the links listed for sources, as well as resources for recognizing and reporting threats and extremist activity. People of Parler seeks to stop hate and protect marginalized communities on Parler and beyond. We hope you will join us. Also, join us next Saturday for a live stream on Twitch. We'll be playing Among Us, and all proceeds go to the Trevor Project.